The fluorescent lights in the hospital billing office flickered as I signed the last form. My hand was shaking. Not from grief anymore that had dulled to a constant ache over the past 2 years, but from exhaustion. Medical debt has a way of crushing you slowly, like being buried under an avalanche one snowflake at a time. My sister-in-law Rachel met me in the parking lot. Her face was drawn, older than her 41 years. We'd both aged since losing Daniel. The final bill came to $63,000, I said, sliding into her passenger seat. My car had been repossessed 4 months ago. Insurance covered most of it, but I'm still looking at $18,000 out of pocket. Rachel reached across and squeezed my hand. Miranda, you don't have to do this alone. Mom would want to help. Mom. Daniel's mother, Helen. The woman who'd held my hand through every chemo appointment, every surgery, every sleepless night when the pain got too bad. She'd lost her son, but she never once made me feel like an outsider. Even now, she called me every Sunday. I can't ask her for money, I said. She's on a fixed income. She has savings, and you know how she is. She'd be offended if you didn't let her help. Rachel started the car. Besides, she already offered. Told me last week she wants to set up a payment plan. You send her $300 a month until the debt's cleared, and she'll cover the rest up front to the hospital. No interest, no pressure. Just family helping family. $300. I did the math quickly. That would take me 5 years to pay back, but it was manageable. Better than the payment plan the hospital offered, which would have bled me dry with interest. Are you sure? I asked. Positive. She made me promise to convince you. Rachel pulled out of the parking lot. She's going to call you tomorrow to set it up. Just say yes, Miranda. Let someone help you for once. That night, Helen called right on schedule. Her voice was warm, steady. The same voice that had talked Daniel down from panic attacks, that had sung me lullabies when I couldn't sleep in those awful months after the funeral. Sweetheart, Rachel told you about my offer? Helen, I can't let you do this. You can, and you will. Daniel would haunt me if I didn't take care of you. She paused. I've already called the hospital. They'll send you a settlement letter. Once you sign it, just send me $300 a month. We'll call it even when we're even. The settlement letter arrived 3 days later. The hospital had agreed to reduce the debt to $15,000 in exchange for immediate payment. Helen had already wired the money. All I had to do was start my monthly payments. I set up the auto transfer that afternoon. $300, first of every month, straight to Helen's account. It was the least I could do. For the first year, everything was fine. Helen and I stayed close. She'd come visit every few months. We'd have dinner, look through old photos of Daniel. The grief was still there, but having her in my life made it bearable. I wasn't just Daniel's widow, I was her daughter-in-law, part of her family still. Then I moved. My lease was up, and I found a better place closer to work. A small apartment complex with a community garden. I'd always wanted to grow tomatoes. Daniel used to joke that I could kill a cactus, but I was determined to try. The woman who lived in the unit next to mine was named Patricia. Mid-60s, silver hair always pulled back in a neat bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She spent most evenings on her patio with a book and a glass of wine. "You're the new tenant in 2B?" she asked, the day I moved in. "That's me. Miranda. Patricia. Fair warning, the walls are thin. I'll hear if you have loud parties." "I'm not much of a party person," she smiled. "Then we'll get along fine." Patricia and I fell into an easy routine. We'd wave to each other in the mornings, occasionally chat over the garden fence. She was retired, spent her days volunteering at the library. Quiet, observant, the kind of neighbor who noticed things. It was Patricia who first mentioned the car. I'd been living there about 8 months when she stopped me one evening as I was coming home from work. "Miranda, can I ask you something?" She looked uncomfortable. "Of course." "There's a car that parks down the street sometimes. Dark blue sedan. I've noticed it shows up the same night every month, usually around 8 or 9. Then it's gone by morning." She adjusted her glasses. "It started about 2 months after you moved in." I felt a chill despite the warm evening. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's always the same night, the night after the first of the month." She hesitated. "I know it's probably nothing, but my daughter made me promise to be careful after that break-in last year. I pay attention now. And this car? It feels deliberate. Maybe it's someone visiting another tenant? That's what I thought. But it always parks in the same spot, right where they can see your patio, and whoever's inside never gets out, just sits there for hours. My mouth went dry. How long have you noticed this? 6 months, give or take. I didn't want to alarm you, but last night I saw someone get out of the car, just for a minute. They walked to the corner, stood under the streetlight, then got back in and drove away. Did you see their face? Patricia shook her head. Too dark. But I noticed they were limping, favoring their left leg. The way they moved reminded me of my late husband after his hip surgery, that same careful gait. I thanked Patricia and went inside, but I couldn't shake the unease. A car that appeared like clockwork. Always after I made my monthly payment to Helen, someone watching my apartment. It was probably nothing. Maybe Patricia was being paranoid, or maybe it was just a coincidence. But Daniel used to limp. He'd torn his ACL playing basketball in college, had surgery, but it never healed quite right. Especially when it rained, he'd favor that left leg. That same careful, deliberate way of walking. I pushed the thought away. Daniel was dead. I'd been at his funeral. I'd watched them lower the casket into the ground. The next month, I stayed home on the evening of the 2nd. I told myself I was being ridiculous, but I stationed myself by the window anyway, lights off, curtains cracked just enough to see the street. At 8:43, the dark blue sedan pulled up. My heart hammered against my ribs. I watched as the car idled for a moment, then the engine cut off. The streetlight cast an orange glow across the hood, but I couldn't see inside through the tinted windows. I waited. 10 minutes, 20. My legs cramped from crouching by the window. Then the driver's door opened. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the streetlight. Male, average height. He stood there for a moment, looking up at my building, and then he started walking toward the corner. The limp was unmistakable. Left leg dragging slightly, shoulder dipping with each step. Exactly the way Daniel used to walk when his knee was bothering him. I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. This wasn't possible. I'd seen his body in the hospital. I'd held his cold hand. I'd watched them close the casket. The figure reached the corner, paused, then turned and walked back to the car. The same careful gait, the same rhythm. He got in and drove away. I spent the rest of the night on my couch, lights on, door double locked. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was losing my mind. Grief does strange things to people. I was seeing what I wanted to see, or what I feared to see. A ghost made of guilt and longing. But Patricia had seen the limp too, before I'd told her anything about Daniel. I needed to know for sure. The next day, I called Rachel. Can you do me a favor? Can you send me a photo of Daniel's grave? There was a long pause. Miranda, are you okay? I need to see it, please. She sent the photo an hour later. The headstone was clean, flowers fresh. Daniel Marcus Hayes, beloved son and husband. The dates carved in granite. I stared at it until my eyes burned. He was dead. This was real. The limp was a coincidence. Lots of people limped, but I couldn't shake the pattern. The car appeared every month, always after my payment to Helen. Like clockwork. I started keeping a log. Date, time, how long the car stayed. I took photos with my phone, zoomed in as much as I could, but the license plate was too far away and the light too dim. After 3 more months of this, Patricia knocked on my door with her laptop. I hope you don't think I'm overstepping, she said, but I installed a Ring camera last week. It caught something last night. She showed me the footage. Clear as day, the blue sedan pulling up. The timestamp read 8:51 p.m., just a few hours after I'd made my monthly payment. The figure got out, walked toward my building, then stopped and looked up at my window. The streetlight caught his face for just a second. I couldn't be sure. The resolution wasn't perfect, and it had been 2 years, but the shape of his jaw, the way he held his shoulders. Miranda, who is that? Patricia asked gently. I don't know, I whispered. But I was lying. I called Helen that Sunday, our regular call. I kept my voice steady, casual. How are you feeling? I asked. Oh, you know, the usual aches and pains. Getting old isn't for the weak. She laughed, that same warm laugh. How's work? Good. Busy. I paused. Helen, can I ask you something? About Daniel. Of course, sweetheart. Where? Where are his ashes? The silence stretched too long. What do you mean? Helen's voice had changed. Careful now, guarded. His ashes. I know you wanted to keep them. I just wondered if they're somewhere special. They're here. In my living room. On the mantel. She cleared her throat. Why do you ask? No reason. I was just thinking about him. We said our goodbyes, but something in her voice had shifted. A door closing. I couldn't let this go. I knew it was crazy. I knew I was probably traumatizing myself for nothing, but I had to know. I drove to Helen's house 3 days later. She lived 2 hours away, in the same neighborhood where Daniel had grown up. I'd only been there a handful of times since the funeral. I knocked. No answer. I tried again, then peeked through the front window. The living room looked the same. Same floral couch, same family photos on the walls, and there, on the mantel, a brass urn. I tried the doorknob. Locked, obviously. I walked around to the back. The kitchen window was cracked open, just an inch for ventilation. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I was drowning in questions, and I needed air. I jimmied the window open wider, pushed the screen in, and climbed through. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. This was breaking and entering. I could be arrested. But I was already inside, feet on Helen's kitchen tile, and I couldn't turn back. The house was quiet. I walked slowly to the living room, every creak of the floorboards making me flinch. The urn sat on the mantel between a photo of Daniel's father and a vase of dried flowers. It was heavier than I expected when I picked it up. The lid was sealed with a small screw. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. I unscrewed the lid and looked inside. Sand. Just regular sand, like from a beach. Not ashes. Not the gritty, chalky remains I'd expected. I stood there in Helen's living room, holding an urn full of sand, and felt my entire world tilt. That's when I heard the key in the front door. I barely had time to screw the lid back on and set the urn down before Helen walked in. She froze when she saw me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Miranda. Her face was pale. What are you doing here? Where is he? My voice didn't sound like my own. What are you talking about? Where is Daniel? Helen's expression crumpled. She looked suddenly ancient, fragile. She sank onto the couch, put her face in her hands. Helen, I need you to tell me the truth. She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he's alive. The room spun. I grabbed the back of the couch to steady myself. He's alive, she repeated. The cancer went into remission 6 months before the funeral. But by then, he'd already decided. He wanted out. Out of what? The marriage. His life. Everything. He said he couldn't do it anymore. The medical debt, the pressure, the constant fear of the cancer coming back. She looked up at me, eyes red. He wanted a fresh start, no baggage. So he faked his death. He said it was easier this way. Cleaner. You'd get the life insurance, I'd help you with the medical debt, and he'd disappear. Start over somewhere new. And you helped him. Helen's silence was answer enough. The life insurance? I said slowly. There wasn't any, was there? No. The medical debt was real, but the rest. The settlement with the hospital, the payment plan. That was Daniel's idea. He wanted to make sure you were still paying every month. Why? So he'd know where you were. The money was his way of keeping tabs. He'd check my account, see the transfer, and know you were still at the same place, same job. She wiped her eyes. He watches you sometimes. Make sure you're okay. The blue sedan. The figure with the limp. The same night every month. He's been watching me for 2 years. He wanted to make sure you moved on, that you were safe. He still cares about you, Miranda, in his own twisted way. I felt like I was going to vomit. Where is he? I can't tell you that. Where is he, Helen? Please don't ask me to choose between you and my son. I pulled out my phone. Then I'll call the police. Insurance fraud, faking a death, stalking. Wait. Helen's voice cracked. He's staying at a motel. The Suncrest, off Highway 40, room 23. He's been there for the past 6 months. Please, Miranda. He's sick. Not the cancer, but mentally. He needs help, not prison. I left without another word, climbed in my car, and drove. The Suncrest Motel was exactly as depressing as it sounded. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign, cars parked at odd angles in front of identical brown doors. I found room 23. Knocked. The door opened, and there he was. Daniel. My husband, the man I'd buried. Thinner than I remembered, beard unkempt, but alive. Very alive. Miranda. He didn't seem surprised. Maybe he'd been expecting this. You found me. You've been alive this whole time. Yeah, you let me grieve you. I know. You watched me. Every month. Like some kind of stalker, I needed to make sure you were okay. I laughed, and it came out harsh, broken. You needed to make sure I was okay? You destroyed my life and you want to talk about making sure I was okay? I couldn't do it anymore, Miranda. I couldn't be that person. The sick guy, the burden. I needed to be free. So you chose to haunt me instead. He had the decency to look ashamed. I didn't mean for it to go this long. I thought, I don't know what I thought, that it would be easier. Cleaner? You know what isn't clean? Fraud. Faking your death is a crime, Daniel. Do you understand that? What are you going to do? I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I'd loved, who I'd stayed up with through countless nights, who I'd held while he cried about dying. This stranger wearing his face. I'm going to the police, I said. I'm going to tell them everything. The fake death, the insurance fraud, the stalking. And then I'm going to get a restraining order. Miranda. And you're going to leave me alone. For real this time. No more watching, no more checking up on me. I want you out of my life like you're actually dead. I turned and walked away. My hands were shaking, but my steps were steady. I drove straight to the police station, filed a report, gave them everything, the photos, the Ring camera footage, Helen's confession recorded on my phone. The case moved quickly after that. Daniel was arrested 2 days later, charged with insurance fraud, filing a false death certificate, and stalking. Helen was charged as an accessory. The court proceedings took months. Daniel's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, that the cancer treatment had affected his mental state, but the judge wasn't buying it. He'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The premeditation was clear. Daniel got 18 months in prison and 5 years probation. Helen got probation and community service. I testified at both trials, looked them both in the eye, and told the truth. The local news picked up the story. Man fakes death to escape marriage, stalks ex-wife for 2 years. I became a curiosity, a cautionary tale. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with messages ranging from sympathy to morbid fascination. Rachel called me crying. I had no idea. Miranda, I swear, I had no idea. I know, I said. And I did. Rachel had been a victim in this too. The insurance company came after me for the death benefit, but my lawyer argued successfully that I'd been defrauded. I didn't have to pay it back. I moved again. New apartment, new neighborhood. Somewhere Daniel would never think to look. I changed my phone number, blocked Helen and Rachel on everything, even though Rachel didn't deserve it. I needed a clean break from all of them. Patricia helped me move. She packed boxes and didn't ask questions, just kept me company and made sure I ate. You're stronger than you think, she said on the last day in the old apartment. I don't feel strong. That's usually when you are. I'm rebuilding now. Therapy twice a week. A new job where nobody knows my story. I even joined a support group for people who've experienced financial fraud by family members. Turns out there are more of us than you'd think. The medical debt is gone. The hospital forgave it once they learned about the fraud. I opened a savings account, started my tomato garden. Patricia visits sometimes, brings wine and gossip about our old building. I don't think about Daniel much anymore. When I do, it's not the man I married I'm mourning. It's the person I thought he was, the version of him that existed only in my mind. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about me, if he regrets it. But mostly, I just don't care. I'm 37 now. I've got time to build a life that's actually mine, one that nobody can fake their way out of, one where the only person I have to trust is myself. And that I'm learning, is enough.